Hey everybody, welcome to another Chippa in the third person video log. It's Thursday, the 9th of May, 2019. I'm on my way to work as always. Thank you guys for coming along. Bleh is what I gotta say. Bleh, I'm feeling bleh. No, I'm doing pretty good. Things I've been thinking about. So, James Cameron, director of Titanic and Avatar, sent, just like George Lucas sending him a picture of the Titanic with all the Star Wars characters on it, when the Titanic took out Star Wars for the highest grossing movie of all time, worldwide. Titanic has been surpassed by Avengers Endgame, and James Cameron made a, kind of silly photoshopped, not quite as cool looking as the Titanic Star Wars one, but cool nonetheless, thing of the Avengers symbol being an iceberg and sinking the Titanic, which, as far as tragedies goes, in pretty poor taste, I guess, but so was the one with the Titanic sinking with Star Wars characters on it, so I get the thing. But, it's cool with one, big director to another, giving a nod to Kevin Feige and the production company behind Endgame and everyone involved. So good on you for being a stand-up gentleman in this case, and kind of giving credit where credit's due. There's an Avatar land at Disney, so I guess they own you too, so maybe it's not as big of a deal, but whatever. It is kind of funny too that all of this is kind of owned and controlled by the same people, whereas before they were all rivals. But we don't need to get into that. So enough about that. Blink-182, who is a band I've loved since my youth, has released a new song. I loved their last album, California. I know they changed up the group, replaced a member with the guy from, Matt Skiba from Alkaline Trio. There we go. And I thought the whole album was fantastic, particularly the second half. They released, additional songs they had recorded. I absolutely love all of the stuff from the B-side release, the second half of California. I think it's even better than the main album. But maybe that's just my personal preference on the type of Blink-182 songs I like. I don't know. But this new song, Blame It On My Youth, is very Blink-182. Very kind of new Blink-182 as it was, which has kind of been the sound of Blink-182 since their self-titled album, post Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. But I like it, you know what I mean? It's an aging, punk rock fan, whatever it is, or pop punk fan, because that's more what Blink's doing. I like it. I think it's a good time. So there's that. Also, I've been listening to the Beastie Boys Book. I don't know if you guys have heard of this. I listen to books on Audible. I have a long commute, so I like listening. I can visualize better when someone else is telling me the story. That's how I like reading books. I've read enough books in my life to be able to say that without sounding like I don't like to read, because I like to read. But there's something about filling up my commute with that ability to disappear and visualize what someone's talking about. The Beastie Boys Book, if you guys don't know, is a chronicling of the career of the Beastie Boys, but being written and put together by anecdotes and stories of the two remaining members of the Beastie Boys, because Adam, passed away in 2012 from cancer. The first chapter is about him. It's called Wild Card. It's very touching. It's a lot more emotional than I expected it to be. I guess they're going around with this as like an off-Broadway type of thing and performing it, the live read of it, which I think is cool. The amount of actors, they've got Will Ferrell, rappers Snoop Dogg, Amy Poehler, all these people they're pulling together to read bits of this book is fascinating. I'm not very far through it yet. It was recommended by a friend at work who's big in the pulse of the music industry, is, kind of lived through this, a little bit older, and it's one hell of a recommendation and one hell of a book. And I highly recommend checking it out. And I'm sure I'll update more because this book is hitting me pretty hard. And I wasn't even, I love the Beastie Boys, but I didn't know a ton about them outside of, the music and the persona. So this is really interesting to see, kind of something that, you think back of as, it's kind of a joke, right? They're very talented, but the whole thing is very tongue-in-cheek. It's very cheesy. It's very, look at, these white guys, doing 1980s style hip-hop is, a silly thing even then, and it works. But there's a lot more going on under the hood, and I think the book is fantastic. So even if you're only a casual fan of the Beastie Boys or a casual fan of the music genre in general, or the music industry, please check this book out. I think it's great. Next, after the Spielberg smackdown with the folks at Geeks with Shields, I been thinking about the Indiana Jones movies a lot, because I actually, let's put it this way, I enjoy all four of them. I think Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is a piece of crap, but it's a piece of crap that's got some cool stuff in it that I still like. It's just a mess, but same thing, Temple of Doom. I love Temple of Doom as an Indiana Jones movie, but Temple of Doom has some problems too. But the back and forth in the Geeks with Shields show was between, we talked about Raiders and The Last Crusade. The Last Crusade, I think, is a funner movie. I think it's an easier movie to approach. I think it's a more, I won't necessarily even call it fan servicey, but it's all of the best parts of Temple of Doom and all of the best parts of Raiders kind of melded into one movie. Raiders is the better film. We established that on our podcast, on the Spielberg Smackdown. But that doesn't mean that Last Crusade can't mean more to me. Last Crusade, I would akin, and this is, oh, here we go again. Give me a sec. This is going to be the hard part for me. I haven't watched Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade since my dad passed away. And, he and I would watch tons of movies when I was a kid. Superman, Star Wars, Flight of the Navigator, Last Starfighter. But I didn't realize, and I think this is why Guardians of the Galaxy 2 is my favorite Guardians movie, even though I think the Guardians of the Galaxy first film might be a better movie, maybe. But why Guardians 2 kind of resonates with me so much more is, the whole dad thing. The troubled character. My dad had problems. But I hadn't watched Last Crusade since I was younger, and I hadn't, when you're younger, and you're watching it as a kid, I wasn't a father. And, the relationship between Sean Connery as Indy's dad and Indy is so real. The movie is silly. They give Sean Connery a lot of, the comic relief, which is surprising. But when it really comes down to the things with him and Indy in the movie, and him realizing, because he wasn't there for a lot of his son's childhood, the things he thought he was doing good as a father were both the wrong thing to do and also why Indy is as good at what he does as he is. And him getting to see that and, be proud of it. And then the point when the tank goes over the ravine and he thinks he's lost him and I didn't get to tell him anything, line comes out. And I'm watching this last night and I welled right up. For my adult life, my dad wasn't fully with it, let's just say. And so anytime he would say he's proud, I knew that my dad was proud of me, but I didn't know if he really understood quite what I was capable of and what I was doing. And so things like that really, really get to me. They really hit me hard. And in a good way. It's a happy thing. It's a nostalgia thing. It's not a angry thing. I get it. And I think when I was younger, I didn't really see that. You know, I've talked about watching Finding Nemo as a dad, and all of a sudden you realize that you relate 100% with Marlin's story, and it's a completely different movie, and it's a horror fucking movie at that point. And it's the same thing with Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. I feel so much for both characters. And I know this is just a silly, pulpy movie, but I didn't recognize how heavy-hitting and how real and how dramatic interwoven into the, you know, silly, pulpy movie about guys punching Nazis that The Last Crusade is. I just, you know, thank you, Sean Connery and Harrison Ford, for these performances that I didn't know would mean so much to me for my whole life. And thank you to Steven Spielberg and George Lucas for crafting this movie that, you know, God, it just means so much to me. And, you know, thanks to my dad for showing me this stuff. And he came home with a VHS. He copied a lot of videos off of TV when they'd get on HBO, but he bought Last Crusade like the day it came out and brought it home. He was so excited to show it to me. And, yeah, so, you know, this has been the Chippa, patreon.com/the Chippa. Chipman Brothers Tangent, Creating Geeks, Shooting the Shit with Chippa, the Talkbuster podcast. Thanks for joining me on my commute for Chippa in the third person. See you guys on the other side. Bye.